Okay. We're moving to a Q&A. I mean, first of all, to all the presenters, thank you, excellent presentations. And I'm amazed we're on time. That's brilliant. Thank you very much. We have a mic here if anyone has any questions for the panelists. But I'm going to kick it off. And just a general question for everyone. So we've got service providers in the room that have done the GPON to XGS-PON migration. What are the main considerations they should have in mind whilst they're building those XGS-PON networks to be ready for the future technologies that you've been talking about? Andreas, you're closest. You start off.
Okay. Yeah, so I think, there was a good tutorial today from Frank about kind of like when you slice it and dice it, how can you do things? And I think people need to apply thought in how they put things together. Coexistence elements were like, things that we knew from BPON, GPON. These were things that, people use, but with all the permutations we have now, I think we can build OLTs, we can build multi-PON optics, we can build triple PON optics, right? Which are great because they have the right filter combination in them. For people that go a different way, that by deliberation would like to keep the OLTs apart, I think an often overlooked angle is to spec the right CEX, to make sure that you don't put stuff in there that you will rip out, in 5 to 7 years because, well, I think I bet on the wrong horse here and I need this other input. So there you can actually do real damage that costs real money. A, to rebuy this equipment, and then B, to deal with the outages for the subscribers because you will invariably have to completely disconnect the fiber.
Frank.
Yeah, I guess the key thing is to try to remain as flexible as possible. Try to leave as much slack in the network as you can. Install spare fiber, obviously. Leave space in the central office for the eventual equipment that comes next. That kind of simple stuff, right? But and again, trying to plan for the future is not a profitable business, unfortunately. I've seen many operators, they say, okay, I'm going to put in this CEX and it's going to, this coexistence filter, and I'm going to be set. I won't have to break the existing PON when I need to upgrade, right? And almost 100% of the time, it's the wrong filter when they finally go to try to upgrade. So then they have to take it out. You broke the fiber that you said you weren't going to break. So, don't outsmart yourself either when trying to predict the future.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with I think, Frank, you said specifically to go ahead and put the extra fiber in. Your highest cost is the construction itself. The material is, I could say pennies. It's small percentage amounts, right? So if you're currently building a new fiber network, put that extra fiber in. It is very difficult to think into the future what could happen. So yeah, we certainly could overthink it. If I were to go back in time to when I was at an operator and designing networks, we put together a coexistence element that did have what we thought was the right ports, and I think probably would still work, but we probably wouldn't be able to make the reach that we would want today. And so that was an impacting thing. And I think we would have gone back, again, hindsight being 2020, and maybe added a little bit of extra cost to the CPE to avoid that loss in this coexistence element. So, in effect, put additional filtering at the CPE end to enable more of a distributed filter as opposed to the centralized coexistence element. And that, I think that would have allowed us to have more flexibility at higher costs, right? So there's that trade-off. So I think those are definitely the two big ones. Yeah.
Guillaume, from a testing side?
Yeah, from a testing side, we always advocate to test the network properly, right? To control that from the get-go, because you never know in the future what upgrade you'll have. You want to make sure you don't spend effort that you'll need to redo things in the future if it was not tested properly. And controlling the way things are done in the field is also an efficient way to make sure that whatever you have planned on paper is really what you find in the field. Too often, when we go out there with different customers, we see that they find bad surprises in the field that maybe if the process was more controlled, they would not have had those problems and be ready to upgrade in the future.
Any questions from the audience? Then I'm going to throw another one out. What is going to be the use case that's going to topple XGS-PON and make people move to look at 25, 50, 100 coherent? Is there a use case that you think is going to be out there?
I'll tackle that one. I love the trick question, right?
I know.
Is there a use case? There will be. We don't know what it is. We don't know, right? We look back in history and we see that we built capacity in places where we didn't think we were going to need it, but we saw applications rise to the occasion. Is that going to be an ongoing theme? Arguably, no. It's hard to see an application today, but we just don't know. As we build to areas where people haven't had access, we just don't know who the next person is that comes along and finds that next killer application. So I think the rural build is important in this case. But from our perspective, as we look at coherent PON, the reason why we're looking at the longer reach, it's not about the high-speed application. We don't see a need for 100 gigabits at a person's home. We see that as a capacity play, right? So if I need to deliver, if I want to deliver a 512-way split, and I want to do that at 1 to 10 gigabits, whatever it is, to the home, I need 100 gigabits to do that, or maybe even more. And so that's the way we see that is not a speed play, but a capacity play.
Frank.
What's the killer app? The killer app of XGS-PON is sort of the speed test, right? That's kind of a joke, but that seems to be, that's the only thing that will actually use up all that bandwidth. And it's interesting to note that, so why do we have 10G PON now? When it was first standardized and developed, it was quite expensive. And what happened was that the national operators in China decided, as just a matter of policy, that they wanted to deploy 10G PON in a big way in 2016. It said, no, you shall do it. Go do it. And you did it. And all of a sudden, volumes shot through the roof and the prices became what they are today, which is very compelling, to the point where, it doesn't really make much sense to do GPON anymore, does it? Because I can get 4 times the bandwidth for not much more cost. So is that what's going to happen with the next generation? Maybe. It could just be from just somebody has, gets the impulse to say, you know what, we're just going to go do it. And that happens.
Andrea.
Okay, I got a totally different take on that. So my killer app is because I can. So it's very simple, right? What was marketing invented for? It was invented to make you buy things that ordinarily you don't need. And I think that's kind of part of it, right? If I can buy a gig service for $79 and somebody says, you know what, I'm going to sell you a 2 gig service for $100, and somebody says, I want to do this. I love car examples. So that the next guy that basically comes in here and has a 5.7 liter Hemi, it's kind of like, so why did you buy this thing? You don't need this at 55 or 70 miles an hour speed limit, right? Mm-hmm. It's not about need. It's about want, and it's about ability to pay. And I think it's a great tool for an operator to extract incremental revenue for creating shorter storms of higher bandwidth. And that's a great thing.
Interesting. I chair an executive advisory board. And the service providers, when I asked that question to them, said so they could differentiate business broadband services from residential. It's 50 gig, it's better. That's why you should pay more, Mr. Business Customer, for it. Kim, have you got a last thought?
Not really. I agree with the fact that marketing plays a lot in that, right? You want to be the provider with the highest bandwidth in the area to gain, top leadership and be seen as the leader. So I think there's a lot of that behind it as well. Yeah.
Thank you. And to all the panelists, we're at our time. Grab them if you've got any personal questions for them, as in from you, not personal questions about them. But on behalf of the Broadband Forum, I just want to thank the panelists.